My name is Alex. I'm 42. I met Emily in the parking lot of a grocery store, of all places. A flat tire, a bent rim, two crying kids in the back seat, and a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in a week. I offered help. She didn't ask for it. That was the beginning. She already had two teenagers, Dylan and Riley. Their father was long gone. Not dead, not even distant in the romantic sense. Just absent. The kind of absent that has a rhythm to it. A birthday text every third year. A child support check that bounced more often than it cleared. I never saw his face, only the photos in a warped shoebox under the bed. They were always grainy, like ghosts caught in daylight. I didn't walk in like a knight. No speeches, no grand gestures. I just stayed. One night on the couch turned into a week, and then a month, and eventually I had my own drawer, my own towel, my name on the mailbox. They didn't ask me to be a father, but they never stopped me from becoming one either. I paid for groceries before anyone noticed. Covered the cell phone bills when Dylan's screen cracked and Riley insisted on unlimited data. I fixed the leaky bathroom sink, installed the router, got them braces, and sat through hours of school plays where they forgot to wave at me from the stage. I kept showing up, even when it hurt. At first, I told myself, love takes time. I said it like a mantra. Love takes time. Love takes time. But time only ever went one way in that house. They never called me Dad. That didn't bother me, not in the beginning. They called me Alex, with the kind of casual flatness you reserve for a barista or a stranger on the phone. I didn't flinch. I told myself names are just symbols. What mattered was the work, the effort, the sacrifice. But names matter. Names are lines on the map, and mine was never drawn in. Years passed. Riley grew taller than Emily. Dylan stopped slamming his bedroom door and started slamming vodka behind it. And me? I kept the house warm, the fridge full, and the engine in Dylan's car running long after it should have been dead. I stayed late at work so Emily could finish her master's. I missed funerals, skipped vacations, put off replacing my own tires, all so they wouldn't have to feel the weight I carried. But the weight kept growing. The cracks were small at first. Dylan started introducing me as my mom's boyfriend. Even after 6 years of paying for his field trips and replacing his lost gym shoes every other month. Riley started asking Emily for permission for things I had already said yes to, little things at first. A sleepover, concert, but then bigger ones. Tattoo, a weekend trip to LA. When I spoke, they waited to see if she repeated it. As if my words were echoes, not commands. And Emily, she noticed. I know she did, but she didn't say anything. Not once. She just smiled at me across the dinner table like we were still pretending this was a team. Like I hadn't become an accessory to her family. Like I hadn't handed them everything and asked for nothing back. I wasn't asking to be their father. I wasn't naive. But I was asking to not be invisible. Even the dog started ignoring me. We got him on Dylan's 14th birthday. A golden retriever named Rocket. I paid for the adoption fee, the vet bills, the food, the toys, even built him a ramp when he hurt his leg. And still, every time I walked in the room, he followed Emily instead. I began to feel like a shadow inside my own walls. My name was on the mortgage, but the rooms didn't echo with my presence. Only their noise, their music, their arguments, their laughter never directed at me, only around me. I started sleeping with the door closed. Not locked, just shut. It was easier that way. Easier to pretend the silence was peace instead of exclusion. Easier to pretend the house wasn't folding around me, room by room, until all I had left was the square footage of a man who didn't belong. One day I overheard Riley talking to a friend on FaceTime. Yeah, he lives here, they said. But he's not, like, part of it. Not part of it. Not part of. I sat in the garage that night, staring at the workbench I had built from salvaged pine. My name was etched in one corner. I ran my fingers over it, thinking, if I disappeared tomorrow, would they even notice the bills stopped getting paid? Would they miss me? Or would they just miss the lifestyle? Emily started using phrases like, they're just teenagers. Or you're overthinking it. She'd say it with that same smile, that same tone, soft, almost maternal. But not for me. Never for me. That warmth was reserved for the kids. I got what was left. I began noticing how often she defended them, not their actions but their disregard. When Dylan ignored me for 3 straight days, she said he was going through something. When Riley lied about staying over at a friend's, she said, at least they told someone. That someone was never me. I started to keep receipts. Not literal ones, those I had in folders digitally archived, color-coded by year and purpose. No, I mean emotional receipts. I counted every dismissal. Every look that slid past me like I wasn't there. Every time they called their father on Father's Day, even though he didn't answer. I saw the way Emily's eyes lit up when he texted back a day late. At least he responded, she'd say, as if absence was better than presence without the right DNA. I watched them all pretend the myth of him was enough. And me? I was the man who stood between them and the truth. The man who showed up when the fantasy failed. But showing up started to feel like trespassing. One night I stayed late at work. Not because I had to, but because I couldn't face the silence. I drove home slow, lights off in the garage when I pulled in. Walked into the kitchen. They were eating dinner without me. 3 plates. 3 voices. 3 people pretending the 4th chair was never occupied. They didn't even notice I was home. I stood in the hallway and watched them through the slats of the staircase. Dylan was laughing. Riley had their feet up on the chair I bought. Emily passed the salt without looking up. I went to bed without saying a word. That night I dreamed I lived somewhere else. A studio apartment, maybe. 1 plate, 1 fork. No noise. No kids sneering. No woman making excuses for the people who treated me like a ledger. I woke up with tears on my pillow. Not because I was sad, not exactly. But because for the first time, peace felt like a place I had to imagine instead of inhabit. Because the family I built was never mine. I was just the scaffolding. The beam behind the drywall. The structure they built their lives against. And when they were done, they painted over me. It happened on a Tuesday. The dishwasher had flooded the kitchen again. I was on my knees, soaked through, elbow deep in the guts of a machine I didn't break but kept fixing. Emily was upstairs on a Zoom call. Dylan was in the living room, laughing at a video on his phone. Riley had their door shut, headphones on, humming along to something I'd never be invited to hear. I tightened the last bolt, wiped my hands, stood up. The house smelled like damp linoleum and detergent. I was thinking of what to cook for dinner when I heard it, just loud enough to stop me mid-step. Money doesn't make you a dad, Dylan said. Riley laughed. He thinks he's in charge just because he pays for stuff. Then Riley said something that didn't come out as a whisper, not really. Let him keep paying. He's not family. I froze. I could see them, just around the corner in the hallway, not even trying to keep their voices low. Emily stood with them. I expected her to interject, to raise a hand, to scold, to remind. But she didn't say a thing. Not one word. She just smiled like she was watching a rerun she already knew the ending to. They saw me. I know they did. Dylan looked right through the archway and saw my silhouette in the kitchen, towel in hand, soaked shirt clinging to my chest. He didn't flinch. Riley glanced once and looked away, as if I was wallpaper. Emily met my eyes for a second. And then, she looked down at her phone. That was the moment. Not the cruel words. Not the laughter. Not even the smugness. It was her silence. Her permission. I wiped the counters, threw the towel in the sink, walked past them without a word. Dylan kept talking. Riley didn't even pause their music. Emily said nothing. That night I didn't eat dinner, didn't speak, didn't turn on the TV. I lay in bed, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling fan until it blurred into a gray, spinning smear. They didn't even knock on the door. The next morning I woke before dawn. Not with rage, not with grief, just clarity. I made coffee, sat at the dining table, opened my laptop, and began. Gas cards, streaming subscriptions. The Disney Plus they used to watch shows together. Spotify, Netflix, Prime, every service linked to my account gone. Uber accounts shut off. Phone plans frozen. Dylan's car insurance canceled. Riley's therapy copay reallocated to Emily's name. They wouldn't feel it right away. That was part of the plan. I stood up, went to the hallway closet, pulled out 2 cardboard boxes. I packed their things with the precision of a man inventorying regret. Not maliciously, not angrily, just methodically. A box for Dylan, a box for Riley. I labeled them neatly: sweaters, chargers, video games. I left their favorite items on top. I wanted them to know this wasn't about spite. It was about truth. I didn't touch Emily's side of the closet. I didn't touch her jewelry, her shoes, her framed photo of a beach trip we never took. I only left a note. 1 sheet of paper. 1 line. Now it's really yours. Then I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, waiting. They came home after sunset. Dylan first, earbuds in, face lit by his screen. Riley behind him, laughing about something on TikTok. Emily was last. Her keys jingled. Her purse thudded against her hip. None of them looked at me until they noticed the boxes in the hallway. "What's going on?" Dylan asked. I stood, walked to the threshold. "You were right," I said. "Money doesn't make me a father. So let's see how you do without the man who wasn't one." Silence. Real, pure silence. The kind that stings your teeth. Riley stepped forward. "Wait, what?" "I'm done," I said. "You want your real dad? Call him. You want a house that doesn't belong to me? Find one. You want a life without me in it? You've got it." Emily opened her mouth. But I wasn't done. For years I paid. I bled. I swallowed every insult, every dismissal. I listened to you laugh at me, ignore me, reduce me to a bank account. And I pointed at Emily, "Let you." Emily flinched. "You stood there," I said, stepping closer, "while they tore me down, while they erased me, and you said nothing, not once. So I'm giving you all what you wanted." Dylan scoffed. "So what? You're kicking us out?" "No, I'm stepping out." He frowned. "You can't just walk away. Watch me." Riley looked between us, eyes wide. "What about the bills? The phone plan? Gone." "What do you mean gone?" "I mean gone. Cut. Ended. You're all free now. And freedom means fending for yourselves." Emily stepped forward. "Alex, we need to talk." I looked at her, and for the first time I saw her clearly. Not as the woman I fell in love with. Not as the partner I protected. But as someone who had quietly chosen comfort over truth, time and time again. "We had 10 years, I said. 10 years for you to tell them I mattered. You never did." Her voice cracked. "That's not fair." I nodded. "No, but it's true." She looked down, just like she did in the hallway. I turned, walked inside, picked up my keys. "Where are you going?" Dylan asked. I didn't answer. I drove. No destination. No playlist. Just roads and the hum of tires and a stillness I hadn't felt in years. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove until the gas light came on, and then I pulled into a rest stop and sat in the dark. When I came home, the porch light was off. The boxes were gone. The house was quiet. Too quiet. They had gone to sleep. Or maybe they were pretending to. The next morning I waited. It didn't take long. Dylan came downstairs first. Looked at his phone. "Why isn't it working?" he muttered. Then he tried to fill his gas tank. Card declined. Riley tried to order lunch, app error. Emily called the pharmacy for her mother's meds. The payment bounced. By noon, the cracks had spread. The world they stood on, the world I built, had end to crumble. Emily stormed into the kitchen. "You shut off everything?" I didn't look up from my coffee. "No, just the parts you didn't appreciate." "You're being cruel." "No," I said. "I'm being precise." She sat across from me, eyes red. "They're scared. They should be. They're kids. They're old enough to humiliate a man. Old enough to learn what happens after." She swallowed hard. "This isn't you. You never knew me," I said. "You just liked what I gave." For a moment, she didn't argue. Just sat there, hollow. Then she whispered, What do you want? I met her eyes. Respect. And you can't give what you don't teach. She stood. Walked away. I didn't follow. That night, they didn't speak to me. Not a word. The TV stayed off. The kitchen was cold. I sat in the garage, staring at that same pine workbench. My name still etched in the corner. It looked smaller than I remembered. But my shoulders, they felt lighter. 3 days. That's how long it took. 3 days without my money. And the illusion collapsed like drywall under rain. The cards were frozen. The apps logged out. The calls to customer support routed to nowhere. Dylan's gas tank hit E on a Friday morning, just as he pulled into the school lot. Riley's phone shut down mid-Instagram scroll. Emily's mother called from the pharmacy in tears. Her meds weren't ready. Insurance declined. The house was suddenly quiet, but not with peace, with tension. I sat in the kitchen, coffee in hand, watching it unravel like a man who'd stopped bailing water from a sinking ship just to see how fast it would go under. First came Dylan, bursting through the door like someone owed him air. His voice carried up the stairs before he even made it to the living room. You canceled the gas card? What the hell, Alex? I had to walk home. I looked at him over the rim of my mug, said nothing. He threw his keys on the table. They bounced once, twice. You're seriously going to pretend this is okay? I nodded slowly. You said I'm not your father. You said I don't get to tell you anything. So I listened. I stopped pretending. That's not what I meant. I tilted my head. No? Sounded clear to me. He clenched his fists, like maybe he thought raising his voice would add weight to his words. You don't get to pull the plug just because you're hurt. I didn't pull the plug, I said. I stopped being your generator. Riley came next. Softer, quieter, like they were afraid of the same echo Dylan stirred. My phone doesn't work, they said, not looking me in the eye. And my bus card's empty. I didn't know you were serious. I didn't respond. I just pushed a sheet of paper across the table. A list of numbers. Their real father's contact. His email. His last known address. What's this? Riley asked. Your father, I said. The one you still call on Father's Day. The one who didn't pay for your braces, your therapy, your summer camps. Call him. They didn't take the paper. Just stared at it like it was a tombstone. Emily showed up that night. Not with tears. Not with apologies. With exhaustion. Her eyes red. Makeup smudged. Shoulders low. We need to talk, she said. I stepped aside. Let her in. The boxes were still gone. The house still silent. But the weight of absence, my absence, filled every room now. She sat down at the kitchen table. Same spot where I used to leave grocery lists. Where I taught Riley how to budget. Where Dylan signed his college applications. They're struggling, she said. I nodded. Yes. They're sorry. I folded my arms. She looked at me then, really looked, and saw the absence behind my eyes. The part of me that used to light up when she walked in, gone. I didn't know they were that cruel, she whispered. No, I said. You didn't want to know. Silence. They're just kids, she said softer. They don't get it yet. They got it enough to say I don't belong, to laugh about it, to humiliate me under your roof while you looked the other way. They didn't mean it. They meant every word, I said. And so did you when you said nothing. She looked down at her hands. I turned and opened a drawer, the one with the receipts. All those years of paper, bank statements, payments, doctor visits, plane tickets, camp enrollments, auto repairs. I dropped them on the table. This is what I gave. For years. Without asking. Without pause. She didn't touch the stack. Her hands trembled too much. You stood by, I said. Let them chip away at me like I was drywall. And now the power's out and you're cold, and you want me to plug the heater back in. But the outlet's been ripped from the wall. She looked up, tearful. So what now? You're done with us? No, I said. I'm done financing people who call me a stranger. She started crying. Quiet, wet gasps that tried to sound like dignity but didn't. I loved you, she said. You loved the version of me that kept giving. They're scared. They should be. What happens now? I looked her in the eye. Not cruelly. Just honestly. Now you figure out what a man is worth when he stops being useful. That night, Dylan called his father. I was on the porch when I heard it. That awkward pause. The voice cracks. The shifting tone from anger to begging. The call didn't last long. 3 minutes, maybe 4. Then came the silence. Then the door slammed. Riley tried the next morning. I heard them in the backyard, pacing, phone in hand, mumbling, trying to pretend they weren't crying when the voicemail clicked on again and again. By the weekend, the food was low. Emily didn't say anything, but I saw her scanning the pantry like she was solving a riddle. She cooked rice 3 nights in a row. Riley stopped asking for takeout. Dylan picked at frozen waffles with the resignation of someone used to plenty. The heater broke Monday night. It groaned first, then rattled, then died. They didn't ask me to fix it. They didn't dare. They sat in the living room under blankets, shivering. As I walked past with a spare heater tucked under my arm, I plugged it in upstairs. In my room, closed the door. They spent that night on the couch in sweaters, the TV dark, their phones dead. No streaming, no snacks, no warmth. Emily knocked once. I didn't answer. The next morning, Riley stood outside my door. "I'm sorry," they whispered. I opened it, looked them in the face. "Are you sorry for what you said?" I asked. "Or because it finally cost you something?" Their lips trembled. No answer. That's what I thought. The door closed again. Dylan left the house 2 days later. Packed a bag. Didn't say where he was going. Emily didn't stop him. Riley just watched from the stairs. That night, Emily came into my room. Not to beg, not to shout, just to stand there silent, eyes raw. "I didn't think it would fall apart this fast," she said. "I did." She sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress barely shifted. "They're not bad kids," she whispered. "They just didn't understand what they had. And now they do. But it's too late." She started to cry. I let her. I didn't move. "I don't know how to fix it," she said. "You don't." She looked up. "So that's it?" "That's always been it," I said. "They just never felt the impact before." The next morning, I found her at the stove, cooking eggs, toasting bread, pot of coffee already brewed. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Just said, "Sit." I did. She slid a plate toward me. "I can't ask you to forgive them," she said. "But I can stop pretending they were right." I ate in silence. It was good. But it didn't taste like redemption. Just necessity. Riley came down. Said nothing. Just sat. Emily handed them a plate. They ate with their head down. Like a soldier on punishment. For the first time, no one looked at their phones. No music. No jokes. Just forks scraping on ceramic and a house adjusting to its own emptiness. Later that day, Emily found me outside. "I talked to their father," she said. "He can't help." I shrugged. "He said he's sorry. Tell him to call me when sorry pays for heat." She smiled. Just a crack. "I'm sorry too," she said. I believed her. But it didn't change anything. That night I got a text. From Dylan. "You were right. I was an asshole. I'm sorry." I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I deleted it. Now I sleep. Not just the drifting off kind. I mean real sleep. The kind that wraps your body like a burial sheet and whispers, "You've done enough." No footsteps overhead. No doors slamming. No arguing voices down the hallway. Just the hum of the fridge and the rhythm of breath. My breath. The house is still. Stays clean now. No more crusted bowls left in the sink. No piles of laundry multiplying overnight. I wash a single plate. Brew 1 cup of coffee. Fold 1 towel. I never realized how much noise a house made until mine stopped speaking altogether. Emily moved out 4 weeks ago. She didn't say goodbye. Not properly. Just took what was hers and what she could carry, and left the rest in silence. I woke to an empty closet. No perfume in the bathroom. No extra toothbrush. Her drawer in the dresser bare. The space she occupied in this house dissolved like steam after a shower. She went back to him. I saw it coming. The quiet texts. The pauses in our arguments when his name surfaced. The slow way she stopped trying to explain the kids' cruelty, as if she was slowly, finally believing they were right. She chose the comfort of a memory over the man who stayed. I used to think I would have fought that, tried to win her back. But I didn't. I watched her walk out with a suitcase in each hand and felt nothing. Just the creak of the door and the wind behind it. Now they're all crammed into his one bedroom. Him, the father who vanished every holiday, who contributed nothing but his last name and his disappearing act. Dylan, slouched into the corner like a man robbed of his throne. Riley, curled into their hoodie, eyes glassy from screen time and cold dinners. Emily, frozen in the kitchen like someone who forgot how to move. And him, feet up, beer in hand, TV blaring sports he doesn't care about. Laughing at his phone. Laughing while the three of them orbit around his neglect like satellites desperate for heat that will never come. I drive past sometimes. Not out of bitterness. Just curiosity. Just to make sure I didn't imagine it. The downgrade, the decay, the slow realization written in their body language. They're learning the math of real life now. The equation where love doesn't equal groceries. Where blood doesn't cover rent. Where a father's name doesn't come with a father's burden. They made their choice. I gave them the freedom to. And me? I stayed. In the house I built. With the walls I patched, the floors I refinished, the pipes I learned to fix because no one else would. I kept the job. The porch. The habit of checking the locks twice before bed. But something shifted. The silence that once screamed now soothes. The emptiness that once ached now exhales. I buy groceries and they last all week. I fill the gas tank once, maybe twice a month. The fridge stays full, the garbage stays light. The pantry doesn't cry for restocking. I no longer lose money into the abyss of their wants disguised as needs. The subscriptions are gone. The expenses halved. I watch my savings grow and wonder how long I let myself bleed. Sometimes I find myself reaching for old routines. Grabbing a third toothbrush at the store. Checking school calendars that no longer matter. Habits die slower than love. But they do die. And in that death, something new is born. Peace. I sleep with the window open now. Let the air roll in and wash the past out of the corners. I play music in the mornings, old jazz, the kind they mocked me for. I read books again. Not to escape. Just to feel something quiet and alive. They tried to contact me. Not Dylan, not since the apology I deleted. But Riley sent an email. Subject line, "Can we talk?" The message was 4 lines long. I miss you. I didn't understand what you did for us. I think about it a lot. I'm sorry. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply. Not because I hated them, but because understanding should come before damage, not after. You don't set a house on fire and then ask to live in the ashes. Emily called once. I let it ring. The voicemail was short, hesitant. I shouldn't have let them talk to you like that. I should have stood up. You were everything. I see that now. I hope you're happy. I am. Not joyful. Not dancing in the kitchen happy. But clean. Untethered. Real. Because I wasn't their father. I was their foundation. I was the unthanked presence beneath every comfort, every convenience, every opportunity they ever mistook for coincidence. They thought fathers were supposed to be loud, to demand, to assert power with noise. I used silence. I used labor. I used loyalty. And they mistook that for weakness. But here's the truth no one tells you. The quiet man is the one who's holding everything up. And when he leaves, the house doesn't shake. Crumbles. Let it all fall into the mess they built. Let them fumble for candles in a house that once glowed with electricity paid in my name. Let them call their real father when the internet goes out. Let them face the mirror of their own making and see the cost of contempt. Because love without respect isn't love. The servitude. And I don't serve anymore. Now I walk the long trail behind the house, the one no one else cared to notice. I sit on the bench I built myself, varnished with sweat and patience. I watch the sun rise without interruption. No one calling my name. No one needing money. No one demanding proof of my worth. Just the world and me and the sound of my own breath finally being enough. So if you're reading this, if you're the man who's been mistaken for furniture in his own home, who's paid the bills and taken the beatings and waited for a thank you that never came, hear this: you're not their father? Fine. But make damn sure they never forget you were the reason the light stayed on. Make sure they remember the silence that followed when you stopped answering the door. And if you're asking yourself, was I wrong? Ask instead, would they have done the same for you? Because if the answer is no, then walk. And let them learn the weight of the foundation they lost.